and we are being recorded, and I will turn things over to Rabbi Berger for the second in his series of webinars.
So, good evening. Before I start this webinar, the series is in memory of one of our friends, Jacob Wien, who had attended, if you recall from last week, who had attended the most recent Mussar Kala. I've been in Vadim with him. We've had a lot of us, some of us have long associations with him. I'd like to share one thing he taught me, even though it's not quite on Tefillah, because it is on Mussar, and it should be a blessing for his memory. One thing, that hits me when I prepare for this class is that it's very easy to, when a person is thrust in a position where they're expected to lead, it's very easy to be a lead. Like when somebody points you to be a teacher, it may not be easy to be a teacher, but it's much easier to lead as a teacher than to lead from within the class. We have models of the general who leads from the front, who's the first of the soldiers into the fray, and the general who leads from the back, who is this idea man who really can't do any of the things himself, but knows how to inspire the army to, go on the offensive. But to actually be able to lead from the middle without being appointed general, that takes real skill. That actually takes, I would say it takes anava. It takes a certain modesty. An idea that I don't need to be the person with the limelight in order to contribute, to be so strong in that stance that the entire group's dynamic changes because you're there. This is, I think, was the power of the Shunammite woman who had given a home to Elisha, and Elisha wanted to repay the favor. And he said, would you like me to mention the king, either the king with a lowercase k, the king of king of Israel, or perhaps he was referring to the king with a capital K. Could I pray for you? And she says, B'silch Ami Anochi Yoshevet. She's perfectly happy. I dwell among my nation. I don't need to be in the front. I don't need any special attention. And this is something that is very rare. Like, I've seen Jacob take leadership, be in a position of responsibility and take leadership. But I've seen very few people who share his ability to have such anava, such being able to be a team player, being able to be secure in one position. They don't need to be the person in front of the class, and yet somehow they're changing the whole group dynamic. It was something that made facilitating the VOD with Jacob and Bonnie in it really educational for me as the facilitator. And this is, as I said, it's not his only skill. It's not the only time I've seen him in a leadership kind of aspect. But it is such a rare quality in a person. It's something that I wanted to mention because if we don't learn it from Jacob, then there are very few people we can learn that kind of thing from. And I thank everybody for their indulgence for that little detour. Now let's review. I threw a lot of ideas out last week. I want to review some of them, the highlights, before we move on. So the opening idea was, remember, from Jacob, our forefather, not Jacob Wien, mentioned that there were two forms of prayer that stood in good fast when he faced the Amorites. There was his sword and his bow. Right? Tefillah, as our sages put it, and requests. Or as we say in Kaddish, because Kaddish is in Aramaic, floton, voton. We have the prayers that impress how we're supposed to be feeling, and the prayers, the requests that express how we are feeling. So when we express ourselves to God as we would express ourselves to our parents when we're in need, or to a loving spouse, that is a request mode. That is sort of like the arrow. Whereas when we pray from a siddur, that is lihitpalel, that is in the reflexive, something I do to myself. That is like the sword, because it doesn't require the same expertise I'm told what to say, and it's a matter of being able to bring that into my own character, so that I can become the kind of person who ought to be getting whatever it is I'm asking for. I then mentioned that while classically we use metaphors for God that involve a king or a feudal lord, that I personally had a hard time relating to either of those because I'm a product of a democracy. And I suggested, even though this is not of the same grandeur, that we can view God as the CEO, as somebody who really holds at least our income. Of course, God holds far more than that in his hand. And therefore, when we come to a meeting, you want to be prepared for the meeting. You want to speak and come up with requests, but you're not going to phrase to the CEO. When you ask for things, you want to explain why it's a win-win and it's provided. And what really underlies this partnership is the concept of a bris, of a covenant, where we're not in a contract. A contract, I promise to do things for you because I want you to promise to do things for me. In a covenant, we're creating this, if you remember I called it BMBW LLP, Better Me, Better World Limited Partnership. We're creating a new entity. That God and I are going to work together to create something together. And so the requests really need to be from the perspective of the partnership, of the not I need or I want, because God knows what I need better than I know what I need. I want, therefore, is totally irrelevant because God knows what will make me happier in the long run better than I do as well. But if I can bring myself on board with his plan so that our plans merge, then I can get what I want because what I want is what he wants. And we noted that Tefillah, the Amidah, is attributed to the men of the Great Assembly, including a number of prophets. And this is a very central theme that the men of the Great Assembly who created the beginnings of Siddur included the last of the prophets. This comes up repeatedly in the Rambam's Torah, Maimonides' Torah of the Jewish law, because Tefillah is the representation of that dialogue with the senior partner, with the CEO, with God. So as the conversation with God ended on the plane of prophecy, the prophets set up the next stage in the dialogue where they can represent God on our behalf. And we can study their words and the words of the sages that follow them and kind of get from there what God would be saying to us if we still knew how to listen to it. And notice, by the way, I just threw in an aside there about the nature of prophecy. It's not so much that prophecy ended, it's that we stopped learning. We lost the skill. God didn't stop speaking. We lost the skill to listen. And then, in a sense, prophecy continues eternally, if only we knew how. The fifth item, not that I numbered the rest of them, after the tefillah, so we have this ramp-up process, remember, with all the psalms that go into this. We get to tefillah, the Amidah, which is the core tefillah, and then we have our requests. We have Tachanun, we have the Elokai Netzor. After we bring ourselves in line with the divine plan, so that we're asking things from a position of, this is what's best for the plan, not just for me, because I want to be aligned with the plan. I'm turning myself into an actor in the plan, so that when I get tools, it's to help me do the plan. When I have money, it's not just because I want money, it's because I have a role in dispersing God's money. Then I could deal with Tachanun. So after I practice with the sword, then I can have the arrow. The arrow takes more skill. I need to know how to aim it. I had to already have developed myself working with the sword, but it has much further reach. One point which I wanted to emphasize, because somebody asked me about it afterwards, actually at the last moment in the chat session, when we say that there are two modes of tefillah, we do not mean of prayer. We do not mean now we do this and now we do that. The Amidah, it's a turn things into the Amidah. If you are facing problems with income, so there's a prayer about, it's phrased mostly in terms of crops, because of the history of when it was written, but there is a bracha in the Amidah about God providing rain and bringing wealth to the world. It is obligatory. It would be callous to say this blessing and not mention your own need if you actually have needs in that regard. So it's not that tefillah stands alone. Tefillah is a mode. In the abstract, there are two different activities. But truly, our tefillah should also contain some requests. Just as our requests, which are ideally just a raw expression of ourselves, start with the Tachanun and the Sidur, with Elokai Nitzur, with other such prayers. In fact, many of us, if we have grandmothers from Eastern Europe, they may have had books called Chinas, which is also from the word Tachanun, but transmogrified into Yiddish, which reflects the Yiddish prayers that many of women of those generations would say, asking for healthy kids, for wise children, for good children, for matches for their children, for children. Housewives in Eastern Europe did basically revolve their lives around families, kids. But also just to ask for things, ask for a husband, ask for. These were done in these collections of tefillot that were called chinas, and they were, a woman would just select which one she wanted to say because they were an expression. But still, there was this idea that somebody who had more skill was at least giving a trellis upon which we could grow this vine of our desires, of our needs, of our expression, of turning to God the way one would turn to a parent or a friend or somebody else we feel is on the same page and supportive. We talked about praying like an angel, that as it says in the introduction to Shema. I'm going to bring up that page again, since we have it available. We have, they turn to each other to sanctify their Maker, the Nachat Ruach with a tranquil spirit, so we have that spiritual tranquility. Safas Ruach, clear speech, that things on the cognitive level should be clear. And Une'ima with a aesthetic beauty. The prayer and the ideal should be tranquil, cognitively clear, and with music. And this is actually a very hard balancing act for human beings. It's an ideal that we can reach for to be able to pray like an angel. It is very rare for somebody to be able to both be thinking about what each word means, speaking clearly, fitting it to a tune that actually fits the meaning, and be tranquil while being passionate. So this is a difficulty. This is the means, the ideal. In Hitta'alut, when the Mussar movement developed tools for being able to internalize an idea, this is called Hitta'alut, self-work. So self-work also came in these different modalities. Where in Kelm they would focus on the cognitive. In Nevardok they would deal with the passion, with just the sheer raw passion of what they're saying. These are modalities that we could then bring to prayer, so that we could take various lines from the Sidur and internalize them, making them ours. And I likened it to polishing a stone. When you go around the stone and you look at each joint in the stone and you see what needs sharpening, what needs polishing. You feel it around and around, the same way you could go through around and around the verse we went through. The majority of the first webinar was examples of this modality of the talut and how to daven the talut. And I gave you 2 hints for how to go around and around and give it weight and give it mass so that it's hard to move, it's hard to leave the idea. And then to actually gain ownership so that it becomes mine, and then I have an attachment, and when I revisit it or pass it by because now I'm focusing on a different verse, I'm not just leaving it the way I found it. It's still part of me, and that part of the tefillah is now more internalized. So the 2 hints I gave you was to look at lists and to look at doublings, where there are almost the same thing said multiple times. And then we can start playing the game of why is it almost the same and how do the differences, what connotations are in each of the differences. The second tool I suggested was that we look at verses as multiple translations, which requires only more than one siddur, I realized, so that you can actually see, like, when was the idea phrased in a way that different times that you say it, it says different things to you. And there, too, you could look at the contrast, but also, when you're in different moods, you could relate to it different ways. And this idea is going to be the centerpiece of today's class. But before we look at the topic of today's class, I want to share one more skill. And that is, what do we do when things go awry? So it's relatively easy to say, well, I'm going to make up to say this verse, let's say, Poteach et Yedecha, as we did last time, the verse from Ashrei about how God opens his hands and provides the needs of every living thing, or provides every living thing with needs and purpose, so that life is a meaningful life. That is somewhat easier. But what do you do when your mind wanders? Especially since the whole point of this exercise is the internalizing words by saying them every day, it is inevitable that we don't actually hit the target, and there are times where just, mind wanders. There's an old joke about the rabbi who, before he could start the Amidah, would say the Mussar and Prayer, because, and then the mind wanders. So what do we do? So, the instinctive reaction most people have, at least most people without practice in meditation would have, is to resist the straying thought. So I'm supposed to be thinking about how God is my strength, right, and my source of hope, and that he creates light in every moment. So that when I feel moments of despair, I know God is still creating light and hope for me. And this is one of the things in the opening brachot of Shema. I'm supposed to be thinking that, but my mind drifts. Particularly, I don't know, go walks by. Let's get very human here. It's not, I'm worried about money, I'm worried about this, other things come up. Now, how do we return to the stream of flow? So there is a technique. I didn't actually see it in the Mussar movement. It's actually from Chabad, from the Lubavitcher Institute. But I was taught it at a Mussar Institute Chala by Robert, actually. But the idea is that there's an idea in Kabbalah of raising the sparks. That creation has these sparks of the divine that are trapped inside, and we can't find them because there's all this every day around us. And the idea is to release the trapped sparks. This is the work of Judaism according to Hasidic thought. But main work of Judaism or not, this very well describes how we can return our thoughts to God from prayer. So let's say I'm supposed to be thinking about hope, and instead my mind drifts into how am I going to pay the bills? Well, I can then think, it is God who's the source of the bills. So rather than just get off track and say, okay, now I'm going to think about the prayer of God creating light. I'm going to say no. I'm going to say, and my worry about money comes from God, and the children that I have to pay for comes from God, and look how God gave me the wherewithal that He has not failed until now, and now I can bring even my distraction back into the stream of the prayer. And this is what Chabad considers this exercise of raising the stars. I found a very effective way of recovering from moments of distraction. Today, I really want to focus, though, on a different part of ritualized prayer. So last time we focused on the Siddur, and in particular on Shacharit, where you have this long ramp-up process, right? You have Shema, you have the Amidah, and the ramp-down process where we talk to God now that we've sort of gotten on the same page, or at least more than we were when we started. I want to talk about brachot, because this is a central part of the Jewish day. Our sages in the Talmud talk about saying amen to 90 times a day to other people's brachot, and to say brachot of our own a minimum of 100 times a day. Picture what kind of powerful statement that is about brachot. That whatever it is a bracha says, and that's what I hope to discuss for the remainder of this webinar, whatever it is a bracha says is an idea that is so essential to Judaism, we're supposed to be reinforcing it in ourselves 100 times daily, plus the times we hear other people and we mark our assent to their brachot. I mean, this is if one wanted to find a book of theology that the sages are saying, you must internalize, you must make the centerpiece of your life. What could it be more than the bracha, which is going to be, part of every hour of our day, whether it's before eating, before doing a mitzvah, or after something that was provided for by God, whether it's lightning, it's thunder, even the fact that we can go to the bathroom and that all the parts work in proper health is the topic of a bracha. Even to get back to what I was saying, and this is why I thought to mention it, that attractive woman that distracted me in the middle of Tefillah, right? There's a bracha to be said when one notes the beauty of the member of the appropriate gender. Even this is something we acknowledge is created by God, and there is a bracha for it. Whether one can say it with kavanah, and therefore the bracha should be said, or one cannot say it with kavanah, and therefore the bracha is questionable to be said, is something you could consult with your rabbi with. I'm just dealing right now with the meta issue that we're supposed to be taking every single event of the day and tying it back to God. And this is really something that the brachot offer us. So I would like to spend a little time on brachot. I think the origin of the power to make a bracha dates back really to the beginning of the Jewish people. And we have that Abraham gets on in 8 days, and God blesses Abraham with everything. Hashem berachet Avraham bakol. Might recognize the phrase. It's paraphrased in Birchat Hamazon in the Great Act of Milk. That Avram was given bakol, Yitzchak was blessed mikol, and Yaakov was blessed kol. But here is where Avram is blessed bakol. And then it is passed on. So then, Vayitain Avram es kol asher lo Yitzchak. Avram takes this kol, this everything, and he gives it to Yitzchak. Rashi explains on this verse that he passed the bracha on to Yitzchak. And what is the bracha that Avram gets? What is the bracha that underlies the Jewish people? So Rashi here writes, it's the ability to bless others. So the great bracha that makes being Jewish a blessing is that it gives us the opportunity and the power to make blessings. The greatest blessing is the ability to bless others. And truly for somebody like Abraham, who is our archetype of being generous, being kind to others, this was obviously the greatest gift that he would have treasured from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, from God. The basic problem, though, with these brachot is that we're not blessing other people. We're blessing God. We say, Baruch Atah Hashem, blessed are you. Now, of course, I don't know what blessed means any more than I know what the word Baruch means. So, blessed are you is opaque to me. I don't know what I'm saying when I say it's blessed. But there's one thing I do know. I can't do anything to aid God. Or maybe I can. And if so, what does that mean? What does it mean to aid the absolute, the infinite, the perfect, the unchanging? How can I bless God? How can I say, Baruch Atah Hashem, blessed are you, God? What exactly am I declaring? It really has, as I said, it has two parts. We need to know what Baruch means, and we need to know what Atah Hashem means. How do we do this Baruch thing to God? Now, the word Baruch, our sages say, is a term of increase. Etymologically, that is unavoidable. A brecha is a wellspring. So when we say Baruch, we are likening somehow or another to a wellspring. We also have bowing is in Genesis. To bow is with the same root. To kneel is also in Genesis, also in Bereshit, the same root. The knee, which probably explains the kneeling and bowing, are Birkayim, right? The knees. So this blessing is coming from to kneel in a pool or a pond. So we don't know what to bless means, but we do know that it has something to do with a wellspring, to create, to generate, to increase. Our sages say that bracha is a term of increase. Etymologically, it has to be. It's a non-physical expression of a wellspring. But that makes the Atah Hashem totally incomprehensible. Because it's one thing to say that I'm doing something unknown to God. It's another thing to say I'm increasing God. Because that implies that God used to be deficient. Like something's missing, so I'm providing. That would work if I'm blessing a person, right? I give you blessing that you have good health. I bless you for good health. I bless you for prosperity. I bless that your children follow in your footsteps. That makes sense. The person could be lacking something, and I want to make sure they don't. So I give them a bracha, a blessing, a wellspring of hope, of metaphysical strength, to make their wishes come true. But what does it mean to bless God? How do I think Baruch Atah Hashem? So I found 6 different translations. But don't worry, it won't be an empty list of 6. We'll try to give the list a little structure. So the first approach that we can take is we can treat a bracha as a statement of fact. So sometimes we may be picking up that apple and we want to make a bracha on the apple, and all we want to do is just acknowledge the wisdom that's in that apple. I think that when you cut open that apple, one seed of the apple contains all of the information it takes not only to create another apple, to create a tree that has an apple that has a seed, that has a tree, that has an apple. That there's an infinite potential in that little apple. And that the apple actually coexists with the animals that will eat the fruit and deposit the fruit in its own fertilizer package, ready to produce a tree, not under the shade of the initial tree. All this wisdom is actually overawing. And we could say, Baruch Atah Hashem, you are maximally Baruch. So it's a statement, God is infinite. God is as increased could be. This appears to be the opinion of some of the earlier Rishonim of the Sephardic period, back among the Arabic-speaking. We have in the Radak, in his book on Hebrew grammar, Rabbi Yonah ibn Tanakh, the Or Zerua, he's Kuni. This is one approach to how to explain the idea of Baruch. The Abu Draham also has, well, it's less clear exactly what he says because there are two versions of the text of his commentary on the Siddur. In one, he says as a statement, but a different statement. The first statement we said was God is infinite. He's maximally inclusive. Here's another one. Perhaps I will look at this apple and I will appreciate the wonderful taste of that apple. I anticipate how much joy I'm going to get from that apple. I'm going to, okay, maybe now I have to start talking about cheesecake. But if I'm going to truly anticipate and feel this joy and be in the moment and truly benefit from what I'm receiving, then I could declare God as the source of all increase. This is a different statement of fact. The first one was God is infinite, right? He is as increased as possible. So at times, though, I may want to approach bracha differently and acknowledge that what I'm about to receive has to be from God, because I receive everything from God. He's the source of all increase. This is the second way of understanding Baruch Atah, and this turns the bracha into hakarat hatov, an expression of thanks. Not that Baruch means thank you, but we are acknowledging that everything good is from the wellspring we call God. And therefore, we thank and appreciate what comes from God. The second family of approaches is to see it as a request. We are asking God that He increase us. This is similar to the previous one. The previous one we were just acknowledging that everything we get comes from God, and therefore God increases us. Here we're asking for that increase. God, please be our wellspring. And this brings us to the second approach of the Abraham, that we are asking for a wellspring of something in particular. God's presence. God, please show yourself through this apple. And you can see now how that ties to the other understanding of seeing the wisdom that is in creation and saying, God, you are infinite, right? When we ask God to reveal that to us. So we're asking, Baruch Atah Hashem, God, please reveal yourself to us. Please, I want to be close to you. And this becomes a request. But in both forms of request, there's still an implied praise. The implied praise is because you don't ask from somebody who can't provide. Right? If you are asking somebody, if you see somebody and people are asking them for investments, you can take it for granted, or at least in the opinion of those people, that he has money. So if I ask God to reveal himself, or I ask God to show me the wisdom, or to give me the full experience of enjoying this fruit, right? We are acknowledging, we're not only requesting from him, but we're acknowledging that he comes from, that what we're getting comes from him. There's one last pair of approaches. We'll call these the declaration of intent. The first one is Rav Hirsch's. Rav Hirsch actually notes that we can indeed contribute to God. I know that sounds heretical, so you could stone me. Fortunately, the meeting software does not actually accept solid objects. So you break your screen, I'm not offering to reimburse. But he actually does note that there is one way we can increase God, because God chooses to restrain himself. God gives us free will. God wants us to be actors in this story. Right? God could redeem the world himself, but he set up that BMW partnership because he wants to watch us walk in his footsteps, participate in the good that is God by emulating him. And this is something he does not provide. He restrained himself so that we provide. So we could actually pick up that apple, the same words as the previous four understandings, and the same apple. And this time we could say, God, please allow me to use this thing constructively, to serve your goals in this world, to bring you into this world. So I will pick up the apple and I will say, may your presence in this world be increased by the energy I obtain from this apple. And that too could be a Baruch Atah Hashem. May you be more present in this world because this apple gives me the ability to bring you into this world. The last approach, and this is really the one I hope to focus on, is that of the Nefesh HaChaim. Nefesh HaChaim was written in the early 1800s by Rabbi Chaim Volozhiner, who was a student of the Vilna Gaon and the teacher of the Mussar Institute. We will mention he's a teacher of Rav Zundel Salant, who taught Rav Yisrael Salanter. So Nefesh HaChaim actually is the root text of two movements. It's a precursor to the Mussar movement, and it's also a precursor to the Yeshiva movement. But the Yeshiva movement focuses more on section 4, and the concept of bracha is the centerpiece of section 2. And he deals with brachot from what I would consider what ends up in another couple of generations being a very one-set perspective. And he says, Baruch Atah Hashem is, again, a declaration of intent. We want God's presence to be increased in this world. But how? By this declaration itself. We want to view everything that exists in this world flows from God. That's what it means, Baruch Atah Hashem. You are the Brecha, you are the wellspring. We can visualize this flow coming from God. If you close your eyes for a moment, right, picture a flow of blue light, of energy, or of water, of some flow coming down into your body, filling your body, filling your existence. The flow is from infinitely far off, that you cannot see the source. It's from up in heavens, but beyond reach. It's infinitely far off. But yet you are connected to the infinite, because that flow is filling yourself. In fact, that flow is not just filling yourself, it is yourself. Our existence is that flow from God being embodied. And we look and we say, Baruch, you are the wellspring, the source of that flow. And I could say, Atah, you, even though you are so far off, because of that flow of connection that comes from God and into and becoming me. And this is what it means when we say Hashem, when we say the four-letter name of God. The four-letter name of God is a contraction of Yishya, he will be, Hova, he is, and Haya, he was. It's a description of God who is so transcendent and so timeless and so beyond the created, the infinite, the far off. Right? And yet it is also the name that the Torah uses, the Tanakh uses whenever God acts in a way that looks compassionate. It is the transcendent and the loving, the merciful, both wrapped together. It is the God who is so infinite, who is so beyond us, that he can be intimate. Let me explain what I mean by that, because it's not intuitive. If you have a class, let's say a preschool class, so there's a certain student-teacher ratio. You have a special ed class, I have a son with Downs. So his class has a 2.5 to 1, 3 to 1 ratio between the teacher and the student. Because there's no way for each student to get as much attention as they need unless there are very few students per teacher. For a class that requires less attention, the class can be larger. For my daughter, who's 9, her class size is maybe closer to 20. You get to college, you're in a lecture hall. There's 80 students in a class, maybe over 100 in some classes. Because as you need less and less attention, the class can be larger and larger. But this is a limitation of people. So when you have a professor, he has rules for the class because he never meets each person individually. He never develops a one-on-one relationship. Well, some do, and I hope I did when I was a professor. But in the abstract, the paper chase professor never actually meets each student. It's just not a possibility when you have 200 students in your class. God, because he is infinite, has the ability to know every detail of our life, to care about each detail of our life, and to relate to us as though he were a person, in a philosophical sense. As though he were a friend, a peer, a beloved that we could connect to. The entire ability for God to be immanent is actually a measure of how transcendent God truly is. A less transcendent notion of God would be the God who, he runs the whole universe. What could he possibly care about me? A truly transcendent God has the ability to be a merciful, loving parent, a lover, a friend. This is why Shem Havaya, the name that connotes God being transcendent and beyond even time, is the name that also says God is the source of existence and also says God is the source of mercy. This is in contrast to the next word in our blessing, which is Elokeinu, our God. And El, in the secular sense, not dealing now with theology, not dealing with our God or with idols, and El is a ruler, a legislative, lawmaking person or body in a society. We have this with the Hittites that Abraham appears before the Crete. The few times when human court, when a Jewish court is called, it's called going before the El, the judge. The God, the merciful, the truly infinite God, the God who fills my existence and therefore I'm connected to him, right? That God is the God that we could refer to with the name Hashem, with the name Adonai, with the 4-letter name of God. God, when we look at God's hand in nature, the philosophical God, the abstract God, the God of justice, that is Elokeinu. That is the God who created everything and therefore runs the world by rules. Just the way the teacher, the professor runs by rules. So when we look at God running the universe, and we see rules, we see justice, we see nature, that is Elokeinu. And it is a step more remote. Right? So we start with Baruch Atah Hashem, that God is flowing into us, and then we say Elokeinu, God flows into everything. We're no longer dealing on that second person level of me and God. Now it's God runs the universe. Elokeinu could also be seen as being from the word Eleh, these, that God gives a common purpose and motive to all of existence. And then one step further, Melech HaOlam, King of the universe, a sovereign of the universe. This is the This is now one step even further from the local magistrate, right? More remote, less of an individual. I'm sorry, I'm talking a little slow. I will be, I'm bringing up a slide to illustrate the bracha. The even less present in the world. In fact, the word ha'olam is from the same root as he'ele, to be hidden. God is hidden in the world. We see all these things. Oh wow, the color scheme did not match what I planned. I apologize for the words. So if we notice whether the pair of words that are in magenta, we see God as the merciful cause of existence, the hoveh, causer, and God is our lawgiver who set up rules and by which the universe runs. And this becomes then the Melech HaOlam, the sovereign of the world. Shakol, that everything, which then brings us back, mirrors back Elokeinu. And that's the reason for the little arrow structure to the way I laid out the bracha. There's a parallel here. Elokeinu, Shakol. Elokeinu is the God of everything, which is why things are being run by rules, by law, with a discipline, with an order, because there is an everything, not just kol, everything, hakol, the everything. There is an essential unity to everything that exists, because everything, after all, is from that outflow from God just as much as I am. And Nihya has existence, again the same Hayahoveh root as the Tetragrammaton, as the four-letter name of God. Everything has existence, Bidvaro, through his speech, which again is like the wellspring. How? Because speech is different than writing. What do I mean by that? That's a little self-evident. Why is in creation, the first chapter of Genesis, 10 times the verse says, actually 9 times what we count the opening verses of 10. It says, and God said. Because speech creates, but only as long as somebody is speaking. A written word exists after the word is written. If we liken creation to speech, we are saying that existence is something God is doing. Not that God created once, and then it exists on its own, but God is saying, right now, let there be light, and those words are light coming from the lamp by which you see me. The words, let there be light, is light. That is the Dibvaro. So that the speech that is coming from God, the perpetual creation that God is still speaking, is the Baruch Atah, is the Brecha from God, and we are the words that God is saying. Our existence is the words, are the words. Our existence is the speech of God. To exist is to be spoken. This is why in Hebrew the word davar, thing, and the word dibur, speech, are the same root. To dibur, ledaber, is to cause a thing. Speaking, it gives the power of existence. And what stronger message could we have when we make a bracha? So we make a bracha, we connect the metaphysical causes of the apple to the apple. And we therefore bring God into the universe with the apple. So I was taught probably in first grade, that if you eat a fruit, I'm sorry I keep on returning to food as an example, but I'm on display and there's a little tension going on here. But when you eat a fruit, I lost my train of thought. I apologize. I told you I was tense. So, the bracha, right, states that God is the source of all. I was taught when I was young, probably first grade, maybe even I was taught that if you eat a fruit, if you eat candy, and you don't make a bracha, you're stealing. And the simple and obvious read of this is because God really owns everything. Everything is for God. Everything is to bring God's good into the world. And if I'm not fully using and acknowledging that I got this from God, then I'm stealing from God the apple. It's His apple. I need to acknowledge that. I need to at least say thank you before eating it, not being an ingratitude. But Chaim Volozhiner, through this process, explains, he's very explicit about this, when somebody eats without, or does a mitzvah, without making a bracha, without committing and focusing on it, and connecting it to God, he's stealing from the universe. Because the apple that is eaten with bracha brings more godliness into the world, because you use that apple to become aware of God, right, and to commit to God, and to commit to act for God, and to remember God's wisdom, and all those 6 ways that we saw of taking a bracha, depending on what mood we're in when we pick up that apple, right, and we're bringing that flow into the universe through our minds, through our actions, and indirectly through our influence on other people, so that the apple could have brought God into the world, and it didn't, so we stole godliness from the world. It's not that eating the apple without the bracha is stealing from God, it's stealing some of the potential of the apple from the world. I thought this was a very shocking way of viewing the bracha. So we see here a flow downward. And there's a rule. Not every bracha conforms to this rule in every nusach. Well, to explain what that means in English, that was maybe more buzzwords than everybody could keep up with. There's different versions of the liturgy. In the tradition of the Vilna Gaon, and therefore of Rav Chaim Volozhiner as well, because that's teacher to student, every bracha ends in the third person. And in general, this is true. Most liturgies, there are exceptions to this rule. But the Vilna Gaon actually chose brachot so that this rule is always true because of this model of bracha. That we start with atah, we start with you. Notice the big bold you in that first line. We end with didvaro, His speech. We're no longer talking to God. So we start up there with God, feeling that flow of existence emanating from God, and acknowledging that I am that flow of existence. The apple is that flow of existence, and we bring it down to the cause of everything on the individual level, and therefore the merciful God, the cause of everything in the corporate level. Sorry again for the corporate metaphor, but I am working stiff. The Elokeinu, the God of law, of rules, who brings an Eile of these, a pattern to existence. To the Melech HaOlam, where we know God runs things even when we can't necessarily see His hand, the Olam, the hiddenness. Shakol, again, the unifying Nifya has existence, Didvaro, through His speech. Because now we're down in this world with the apple. So we follow the path, the flow of God, of Shefa, of divine light, down from God. Doesn't it sound Hasidic? But no, this is actually from the Lithuanian and Mussar tradition. We follow the flow of divine light down with the thoughts that become the apple that we're about to consume. Right? And we say, your words, the words that you said, let there be fruit trees, that is this apple. And I acknowledge it, and I commit it, and I understand the wisdom in it. and you are truly infinite in a way that I cannot hope to understand. And we do this, as I said, we aim for 100 times a day to reconnect so that every action in our life, both like the apple, our experiences, and our mitzvot, brachot on mitzvot, and brachot on our health, all tie back to God, and so that our life becomes one of a pursuit of happiness, a better me, better world in partnership with God. I want to share one last story before I close to explain what it means to truly say bracha. I didn't really understand this until I unfortunately had the experience of hanging out at Sloan Kettering Memorial Cancer Center. 10 years in remission, thank God. But at one point in time, I was coming back for scans, for CAT scans. So hopefully you don't know, but hopefully you won't have to know. And afterwards, I need the men's room. I went to the men's room on my floor, and where the hematology department was, and the men's room was taken. So I went downstairs, and I come out of the men's room, and there are two women there who probably would, under no other circumstances, have started a conversation. One of them was a Hasidic woman who was praying with a Yiddish accent. Buri, Atu, Hashem, Elokeinu, Melech, Ulam. The other woman was a Sephardic woman, judging from facial, I didn't actually interview the woman, not dressed by Hasidic standards, wearing pants actually, and the two of them were standing there outside the pediatric unit, sharing a card, thanking God for help. And obviously, it is impossible to reach the kind of kavanah that two mothers reach when they're praying for the health and survival of their children. But what should bring us to tears is not the thought that these two Jews from such different backgrounds are united by common tragedy. What should bring us to tears is the thought that all of us who thank God don't have to worry about the health of our children. Right? Why can't we connect to God without the threat? Right? The more we thank God and appreciate and bring godliness into the world with what He gives us, the more we are the kind of people, right, who that is lehitzpalel. That is what it means to turn oneself into a prayer. Right? We acknowledge what we get from God, we commit to use it to serve God, and thereby we become the people that God should be and would want to share His bounty with. That is lehitzpalel. That is how to get from God what we prayed for. Not to beg Him, right? Not to make deals with God, but to acknowledge how much we've gotten and how much more we can do with what we've gotten. To ask for His help to do so in the future He will give us more. My hope has given me some tools and motivation to use those tools to actually turn to the Siddur differently than we have in the past. I wish I could say that I am perfect in this regard myself. I feel a little bit, now that I'm wrapping up, a little bit like I was just the blind leading the blind. I did not always achieve kavanah myself, but I hope that we can make best use of these tools. Again, I want to remind people as I wrap up, Media Month is still fantastic. I still recommend it. I've actually was looking at the material this evening. So my strong recommendation has not changed from the past week. I also thank the Mussar and Prayer for giving me the opportunity to give this class. Again, I ask anyone who has further questions to contact me at micha@hstuff.org. I'm going to type that in the chat window if you have the chat window open, because micha@hstuff.org is not necessarily just the way it sounds. It's the ways of everything being two words. Please write me with any questions. Please write me with any successes, so that I feel like this evening was productive. And with that, I turn you back to Jeff, who didn't know I was going to turn things back to him and is now panicking trying to get hold of the control panel.
Okay. Well, you know exactly what's going on with me. It's not even seeing or hearing. So thank you. It took me a second. Thank you, Rabbi Berger. Thank you, everybody, for being on with us tonight. If you have any questions that you would like to ask Rabbi Berger, I'm sure you can email him. Did you give your email? I didn't catch that.
Yeah, micha@hstuff.org. It's the last line on the chat window right now.
Great. At h.stuff.org.
Yeah, exactly the way it sounds, right?
Exactly. So thank you, everyone, and a copy of this link to the recording from this evening will go out to everybody if you want to keep that and take a look at it again. So thank you, Rabbi.